so I just want to focus a little bit on the piece itself. A man was lynched yesterday. Can you explain kind of the idea behind it?
Okay, so that's a very long answer itself. See, lots of long answers.
No,
Um,
go ahead. I'm waiting.
so, so the initial reason I did it is because once um, George Floyd, the news about his death, kind of like hit national media, I was very hurt. I was very upset, and my family was very hurt and very upset. And generally, we become numb to these things because they happen so often. And if you get down by every single one, then you'll never get up. But this time it was different, and I honestly couldn't say why, but I think it was the right time for it to be different. And so I felt this pain, like deep, deep, deep-seated pain of why, and also I know why. And so I didn't know what to do with it, but to write something that I knew was true, which was a man was lynched yesterday. And some people think I made that term up. I did not. That was not my creativity. That is an old civil rights saying, old, old, old. And the importance of it is that it still applies today because it's been around for decades and it still applies to this day, even though we are supposedly past racism and that's all happened years ago, get over it. But it clearly hasn't. And so I took this saying that I knew had power, and the famous image of it hanging in front of the NAACP. And so I found comfort in that power, and I carved it onto my block and I printed it, and I was like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. I'm done. And then maybe 2 days later, my aunt walked into my room and I was showing her all the things I was working on. And I was like, oh yeah, I printed on these pants and I did this. And she was like, oh my God, send me photos. I'll sell that. I was like, okay. And she saw these postcards and she was like, she saw these papers. They were just like little cutouts. And she was like, you should make these postcards and have people send them in to their reps and to their congresspeople and to their all that kind of stuff, DAs and police chiefs, and tell them what the issue is and tell them that, change needs to happen. And at first I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if people will even want the cards. I don't know. And so she kind of helped me develop that idea for like maybe 20 minutes that day. And then the next day I was, by that night I was inspired and I was like taken by this thought, especially because when these things happen, what I've always struggled with in myself is this feeling of powerlessness and helplessness to change anything around me. And so by the end of the day, I was hooked, and I reached out to everyone I knew who could help me in this process. So I reached out to my boss, who works for a nonprofit, who founded a nonprofit, and I asked her how she thought I could reach people. And then our marketing manager helped me out, and I reached out to lots of people in my community, and they were like, yes, do this, and we'll back you. And I was like, okay. And so I posted about it on Instagram, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Y'all, please let this be a thing. And it was insane. Like, the support that I got was like enough to bring me to tears. My story was like, I've never posted more than like 10 frames a day, but my story was full to the point where I couldn't add anything else. I don't even know what number that is. But everyone around me was sharing it, and they were giving it out to everyone to the point where I was overwhelmed with orders and my phone was buzzing and I didn't know what to do. But I was like excited and empowered by this sense of support that I had always had, evidently, but hadn't always been conscious of. And that's the end of that story. Basically, we're into now, but it was just insane and also exciting, but also, again, very sad that I had to do it to begin with. Because the same saying is still true, and that shouldn't be true. But yeah.
Mashallah, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you that that became such a big thing. I'm actually from Minneapolis, so I went out today to the city and saw all the entire city is covered in artwork. So it's really crazy to see. Some of it is just so beautiful. There are murals everywhere. So I'll post some pictures on it. You guys will be able to see. So a little bit about working as an artist. So what's integral to the work of an artist, especially during tumultuous times like these?
So this is a question I had to think really hard about. I wasn't sure at the beginning, but to me, what it boils down to is integrity, and what you have to hold, what the standard you have to hold yourself to be able to stand up and talk about anything. I don't like to think about the people who are the artists who are on the other side of this conflict, but even they have to hold themselves and have integrity in what they create. And so, like what you said in Minneapolis, when the streets are covered with art, because oftentimes when people are in pain or when people feel power within themselves, they turn to art and they turn to create. And so I think just having integrity in what you do and staying true to yourself and being able to get that beauty out there and create things that will improve your world and the world in general is amazing and integral to what we do.
Thank you so much for that answer. I 100% agree with you. So as allies, how can we support you and other Black artists or creatives?
So this question is kind of like simple, but not really. So my question to that would be, how would you support any creative? How would you support any artist? And so it becomes the same thing, except the only difference is the opportunity. So as Black artists and as Black creators, we create lots and we create a lot of amazing work, but it becomes overlooked for the same reasons that Black people die more because of COVID, and for the same reason that Black people are lynched by police, because of the systemic and historical oppression and devaluing of Black people. And so what allies then are able to do is come in and help spread and support the work of other Black artists, but also support the way you would at any other time, which is give money and give time and give your ears and give your eyes and give everything that any creative would need, because it's the same thing we would need.
Of course. If you guys don't know, the Ahlul-Bayt Collective is actually doing a highlight right now that's featuring Black artists. So you guys can go check out our highlights for that too if you wanted to see more. So I just wanted to ask you this question. It's what, as a Muslim and Black, what is your struggle as a Black creative?
So that's kind of the same thing, the same struggle as any other creative, except again, opportunity. I have been very, very, very blessed in my life to have a long list of amazing, like extraordinary art teachers, including Christine, but like throughout my life, and they have pushed me and they have shown me more, and they have supported me through everything. Even when I started this project, a lot of my art teachers reached out to me like, hey, can we share? And I was like, yes, please share. And so I've been lucky in that, but not all people are, especially not all Black people like me, because a lot of times what I've struggled with in my life specifically is resources and materials, and I don't always have money for the things I want, and the places that I can go, like pottery, very expensive craft to do, and so a lot of the places I go to are dominated by white people, and to get any more resources than what they offer at the base level, I have to pay more money, which I don't always have, and so it becomes a struggle of opportunity and a struggle of resource. And so always give money. Artists need money. So that's always a great way to support. But yes, there's some of the, I guess, surface level struggles.
Right, I understand. So a little bit about poetry. This is a question actually by one of our board members. Sorry, I don't know which board member asked this, but do you have any advice for someone wanting to write and publish or self-publish a poem or their poetry in general?
So first I'm going to go with writing because, so I'm going to start with just writing in general. So advice for anyone who's trying to write, especially poetry, I think the biggest thing is to take your time, go through, slowly write what you believe, write what you feel, and then return to it. I'm the kind of person who writes a poem in 30 minutes, but then goes back and finds lots of things that she wants to change. So always make sure that you're going back and you're revising and you're making sure it's the most authentic version of your voice, because sometimes depending on your mood, your voice can change. So make sure it's that kind of like the thing that you will be proud of and support no matter what. And then for publishing, so the publishing industry sucks. I work with the nonprofit that published I'm the Night Sky, which is the book that I'm in. And so I'm kind of in the publishing world as an intern. And so the publishing industry is very difficult to break into because of lots of things. We all heard about, we need diverse books because the publishing industry is dominated by white males. And so it becomes hard to break into it, but things you can do is enter writing journals, and you can find imprints and places that accept unsolicited and unagented work, and you send it to those people, and you build as many connections as you can, and then you create, and then you try and get out there with your voice. As far as self-publishing goes, I don't know much about it. But I say do your research and find out, because some people self-publish very successfully, and it can be great.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So a little bit about your personal poetry and like how you your work process is, or your work process. What is the most difficult part during your artistic process?
Specifically poetry, you said?
Or you can choose whatever you want, actually.
All right. So specifically for poetry, the most difficult part is always my performance. I am very like comfortable on a stage, but I don't always know exactly how to best complement my poetry with my voice and my body. And so oftentimes I have to practice over and over and over and over again, and I have to practice in front of a mirror and see how I look, and then show friends and show family. So that's always definitely the most difficult part about poetry. As far as every other art form, it becomes a matter of getting my idea from inside of my head and into the real world. I am not the most skilled, I'm still working on this, I'm not the most skilled pencil drawer, like I'm not the most skilled figure or realism artist. And so what I have to do is take my time and work really hard to get something out the way I want it to look. And it's difficult, but it's always worth it.
Thank you. So how do you develop your poems? Do you think you can like kind of break down the process?
I don't know. The process is kind of different every time. So I guess in general, so I always begin with a thought or an inspiration, which can come from any number of things. Anything from like daily life to my baby sister laughing to a tree I see with a leaf that's fallen down. It's kind of very, people ask me, oh, what's the inspiration? And I'm always like, I really couldn't tell you. It's anything and everything. And so after I've done that and I've been inspired, or I've had this thought or idea, I immediately turn to the page and I write. And sometimes it flows out really quickly, and sometimes it doesn't at all. And I get a few lines that I know I want to include, and then I get stuck. And so some days I write one poem in under 30 minutes, and some days I write 3 lines and I sit down and I let it rest, and then I write more lines and 3 more lines, and I go back, and after days it becomes something. And sometimes it becomes nothing. And I think that even those writings are valuable. And so I keep them and I return to them, and I always try not to pressure myself in what I create. I try to let my own story come out the way it does. And then I choose from there what stuff I share and what stuff I don't.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
So far, like what is your dream project? Like what is kind of like something that you really, really want to do maybe in the future or currently working on?
So another big question. So a dream project that is just something I want to do in the future, because I hope can happen, is I want to plant trees. And which sounds like really dumb. But I've always had this dream of planting trees in a grove, and I always dreamed of naming the groves, not just giving them any name, but giving them poetry as their names. That's kind of something I've always wanted to do, because we have deforestation issues, and we have all these problems with, capitalism and that whole monster there, and the value of money over life in general, even human life. And so I want to be able to go out into the world and create more life. Put it in places. Also, a project that I'm working on now that I really like, that I've put down for a while, but it's still really big to me, is something I named A Million Words to Mean America. And it's just kind of, I go around and I ask people what they would call this country, if it was theirs to name. And then I interview them, and then they write a poem, and then based off of their poem, I do a painting. And I have gone through that process with 5 people, I believe, and it's been really fun and really fulfilling. But I haven't really gotten to do it since January. And so that's something I definitely want to get back into after this whole project is done, which might be a while.
That sounds exciting.